Great. Welcome, everyone, to our session today on the effectiveness of statewide adaptive community tennis associations. As you enter, if you will take a second to answer the poll that we have up on the screen, that would be great. My name is Amy Franklin, and I work with the North Carolina Tennis Foundation, and I'll be leading the session today for our many amazing panelists that all serve on statewide community tennis associations in the adaptive arena. And so we're going to let you learn a little bit more about that. And also, if you have any questions as we go along, you can put them in the chat box and we'll address those. We've saved some time at the end to do questions and answers, but you can put anything in there and we'll be monitoring those for any questions you may have throughout our session today. So with that, if we can go ahead, and we've had several people answer our poll. So if we can go ahead and close our poll, please. Okay, and we're going to share those poll results. So have you ever been to an adaptive tennis training program or event? And it looks like about 73% of you have actually been to an event, which is so obviously the majority, and we have about 27% that haven't. So this will be a great day for you to learn a little bit more about adaptive tennis. For the rest of you, you can learn about ways that you can maybe think about being a part of a statewide community tennis association. So we can take that poll down, and with no further ado, let's get to our amazing panelists and let them introduce themselves and tell you a little bit about their organizations. So first up, we have Jim Ham out of Georgia, and Jim's going to talk about his organization.
Thank you, Amy, and thank y'all for attending today. But I'm with Special Populations Tennis located here in Roswell, Georgia, and our mission is to enrich the lives of children and adults with intellectual disabilities through the lifetime sport of tennis. And our motto that we operate by is play tennis, make friends, live life. And we have, as far as our athletes in our program, about 750 in the Atlanta area at 18 different locations. So thank you for being here.
Thanks, Jim. And Jim's organization and program has really kind of set the stage for statewide community tennis associations in the southern section. So they were the first, and so he has a lot of great information and knowledge to share with us as you go along this journey. And so next, we're going to turn it to Lou Welsh with Abilities.
Hey, my name's Lou Welch, and I work with Abilities Tennis Association of North Carolina. Our mission is to provide tennis programming across the state of North Carolina to people with intellectual disabilities. Right now, we have over 500 athletes in the program, 20 clinic locations, and 7 tournament locations, and a myriad of other activities and programs going on.
Fantastic. And so Lou's Community Tennis Association came along back in about 2007. So it was kind of the second most mature, I guess, of the group. And here we are with We'll Serve North Carolina. We have Helen Leonard and Kelly Flowhouse, and they're going to talk a little bit about their newly formed organization.
Hi, everyone. I'm Kelly Flowhouse. I'm a wheelchair tennis player and the co-executive director of We'll Serve North Carolina. I have the unique perspective of having a diving accident that left me a quadriplegic, and was lucky enough to be introduced to wheelchair tennis at a life-saving time for me. And being able to watch my transformation and other people's transformation has, catapulted us into wanting to spread that across the state for everyone, as well as educating the community on wheelchair tennis and integrating wheelchair tennis into able-bodied tennis and showing that we are all the same, except for we get 2 bounces.
Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Helen Leonard. I'm the co-executive director of We'll Serve North Carolina. I've been a volunteer for 10 years with the Adaptive Sports and Adventures Tennis Program in Charlotte. As our wheelchair tennis program has grown, we have realized that opportunities for wheelchair players at a recreational level in North Carolina are limited and fragmented. And as a result, with the support of USTA, we have created WheelServe North Carolina. It's a statewide CTA designed to grow, support, and promote wheelchair tennis in communities throughout our state. Happy to be here. Thanks for having us.
Thanks, Helen. So all of you can see we have an all-star cast today. And so we're gonna dive into some more information about adaptive tennis and what it looks like in a statewide community tennis association. If we can pull up a poll, we have a second polling question, and I'd like for folks, if you can, to go ahead and answer that. What do you think is the most important piece to starting an adaptive community tennis association? Is it funding? Is it training, partnerships, player recruitment? We'll give you a minute just to answer those. Excellent. Okay, give you one more minute. And we'll go ahead and close the poll. And it looks like our results, training and partnerships seem to be right up there in the high category, followed by funding and player recruitment. Excellent. So you can stop sharing the results. And thank you. You know, the truth is that probably all of those components are extremely important as you start a community tennis association, whether it's adaptive or whether it's another CTA. But we're going to hear from our experts on what some of their advice is for getting started with a CTA. So what advice do you have for someone interested in starting a statewide community tennis association? Helen and Kelly, since you all have just gone through this process, you can definitely give us some great information.
Absolutely. We're the babies of the group. So, you know, our advice is to surround yourself with experienced people. Don't reinvent the wheel. We've been fortunate to be surrounded by people from the top down with USTA, Kelly Gaines, you know, Amy Franklin, Chris Bryce, the marketing with Leslie Ellis and Candace Kaufman, to we had a model of a adaptive statewide CTA with Lou Welch and Abilities Tennis. And so we've really yielded to other people's experiences and utilized those resources, as well as set a very specific time frame for how we're going to accomplish these goals to not overwhelm us. Initially, we really did not allow as much funding as we needed to. It was much more expensive than we thought to do the whole setup just before we even did programming, through legal fees, banking fees, everything you can imagine. There was money flying out the door. So just be aware of that, you know, funding is a huge part of this before you can even roll out onto the tennis court. So that's our biggest advice is surround yourself with good people and collect some coins.
That's definitely good advice. And you all did tap into some grant funding and things like that to get started, I think, correct?
Yes, absolutely.
Okay, very good, very good. So on to Lou. Lou, what kind of advice do you have?
So Abilities Tennis comes in between our Will Serve and Special Pop. So when I came on 7 years ago, Abilities Tennis already had a good foundation. It was a 501c3, a CTA. So I could jump in with that great foundation. And I looked to Jim Ham for a lot of advice. And then, of course, North Carolina Tennis. Amy helped a lot. But exactly what Kelly's saying is the opportunities that we have through North Carolina Tennis and being a CTA is tremendous because of all the opportunities that we have to network and to be with people, at meetings, at whatever is going on. Amy always gave me the opportunity at meetings to share and to let other CTAs know what we're doing. Because, you know, as a statewide CTA, the first thing I realized was, I was supposed to work 10 hours a week when I first came in, and you can't cover the whole state in 10 hours, that's for sure. And so I realized quickly that this is not about one person running this program. This is about a state full of people that want to jump in and help. And so as a CTA, being plugged into North Carolina tennis allows that.
Fantastic.
It's been tremendous. And with the last poll that came up, I mean, of course, each one is very important, but I think what jumped out was partnerships because of all that I've just said. And, I need CTAs to help in different areas. And then also Parks and Recreation departments are a vital part of the partnerships that we have. And like other CTAs that are set up just in one town, like I think about Western Wake in Cary and Apex, and how Laura Wyant helps me so much with taking care of the volunteers. It's a huge job, and she takes care of that one aspect. There are other CTAs throughout the state that will get me meetings with whomever, if it's a Parks and Rec that they know, or it's just invaluable to have partnerships throughout the state. And just really grateful for so many people who've jumped in to help and be a part of Abilities Tennis.
And that's great. And I think one common thread that all of your CTAs have is that you all go in and work with other CTAs. So you will provide training to the local CTAs and local volunteers to help provide that consistency across the board. So at a statewide level, but you actually go in and train them how to offer the program, and you kind of give guidance and oversight to that. Is that correct? Yeah. So
yes.
Great. Jim, why don't you talk to us a little bit about what are some of the things that come to mind when starting?
Okay, well, certainly we as tennis players all had some attraction to the sport because a lot of it was attractive because it was an individual sport. Developing and growing an adaptive tennis program should never be an individual effort. The more people you can recruit and get involved, the more successful you'll find, because you'll have a difference of opinions out there and you should seek those differences. But essentially what I classified as is the three P's, in that you need to pre-plan, and you need to have partnerships, and you need to find people to engage that have either passion for the sport of tennis or for the population that you have targeted. And some will have both, but if they have one or the other, they can be very valuable to your efforts. And just know that there will be times when you'll be left scratching your head, but just how we always make our decisions is what's best for the athlete. And if we're able to focus in on doing what's best for the athlete, who is our person that we want to benefit from the program mostly, then the volunteers and the leaders all benefit greatly, leaving there feeling like that they got more out of it than they put into it.
Absolutely. That's great advice, Jim. And, it sounds like you're customer focused, toward the athlete, but then also by helping the athlete, you're keeping your volunteers and everyone else engaged and happy as well. So that's just, it really does snowball. And after, as anybody knows, if you've been a part of any adaptive tennis programming, that's what happens. You get so excited once athletes become engaged and volunteers become engaged that it just really snowballs, and you just want to be a part of that. So thank you. We do have one question I see here. Karen Holbrook has asked if we could describe the relationship between Special Olympics tennis and abilities tennis. So, Lou, do you-
Yeah, so, hey Karen, thanks for that question. You know, abilities tennis came into being because of Special Olympics. You know, they do such a fantastic job of providing different kinds of sports year round. But what happened is there were two parents and a coach who came together and said, hey, there's a niche here because we have some kids who are addicted to tennis, as we all know, like that can happen to some people. You just want to play all the time. So there was that niche to set up year-round programming with tournaments, and because with Special Olympics, it's generally just 2 months out of the year. And so that's how abilities tennis came into being. We worked there. Actually, the whole program was set up and basically mimics Special Olympics because we want to prepare the athletes to play in like the fall games and to participate in whatever activities they have. We partner with them on so many levels. We have like Orange County, we have a tournament with them. Rich Green and I work together on that. Right now we're actually doing, and Karen, you probably know this, but the Partner Up, Power Up program. Special Olympics had contacted us after they saw that we were doing the online workouts clinics once the pandemic started. And so now we're doing an eight-week series with Special Olympics doing these workouts. And we wrote the tennis curriculum because, I mean, it's a huge program because Special Olympics has 8 other sports going on at the same time. And so then we recruited different volunteers to come in, and I might be getting off, but I'm so excited about the Partner Up, Power Up has been a great program. And we were able, you know, people want to help out now. And so we were able to recruit Abby Forbes, who played in Wimbledon last year in the juniors and won the doubles. We have some NC State women's tennis players participating. So, you know, the way I look at it is Special Olympics is such a huge organization. And anytime we can partner with them, it's great for abilities tennis. So again, partnering with North Carolina Tennis, Special Olympics, Parks and Recreation Departments, like bring it on. We try to partner with as many people as we can.
Great. And I feel like that's probably very similar across the board. Jim, is that kind of how you do with your program as well?
Yeah, we benefit greatly from here in Georgia, and I echo what Lou said there as being on point. But I think how you benefit is if you connect yourself with a Special Olympic accredited agency, and you can become one yourself. But you leave a lot of doors open if you also establish yourself as a USTA organizational member, because there will be times that the rules of Special Olympics may limit as to what you can do. But if you're hosting it as a USTA event, then you can proceed, and the population, all they want to do is play tennis. So they don't really concern themselves whether they're coming to a Special Olympic event or a USTA event. So I would encourage, when you're starting a program, that you connect with both the USTA and Special Olympics. The USTA will be an excellent resource for you, as Lou pointed out, for your volunteers and for your tennis community. But Special Olympics will be an excellent resource for you to connect with the population that you're trying to serve.
Great, thank you. So with that, we're going to launch into our next panel question, which are, what are some of the things that you seek out in your partners, collaborators, or volunteers for your community tennis associations? Helen and Kelly?
So we have found that there are 3 components for us to a successful and sustainable wheelchair program in our community and then throughout the state. The first component would be the input from recreational or physical therapists who can accurately and safely fit athletes into sports wheelchairs and adaptive equipment. This is a critical component that you really can't start a program or have a program without their input and expertise. Our second component that we have found is that you always need enthusiastic and committed volunteers who are from the tennis community and then have a desire to share their love of the game with wheelchair athletes. And then the last component, which is the most important, is that we're always looking for players with a physical disability who have an open mind towards learning a new sport, or they're willing to take the leap of trying something that's out of their comfort zone. And when you put these three components together, they just blend nicely and are just a real recipe for success. I don't think you could have a successful program with one of those components missing.
For sure. Jim, you have something to add?
Yeah, I think what we found to be helpful is to one, be intentional in our efforts, but there's a lot of myths that go with trying to serve this population. And so what we try to do is to develop job descriptions that give them some expectations as to what they're agreeing to do. And I'm a dinosaur, so it doesn't apply to me, but we're in an age now to where a lot of these people are walking around with telephones where they connect. And so we've put together some online training that allows them to know that if I've agreed to come and volunteer at this site on a Tuesday night, and I don't know what I'm coming to, then we tell them how to be a ball person, or we tell them how to be an on-court coach in a couple of minutes, so that then they get a visual as to what it is they're walking into. And we found that to be very valuable.
Absolutely. So they're kind of giving them that checklist to know, all right, this is what's expected of me as we move forward. And so then you as the coordinator are getting ensured that they know what they're signing up for. And then as the volunteer, they're ready to engage and do those different things. So.
Yeah, it's not unusual that we have some very talented tennis players that come to volunteer, but they don't want to get on the court with the athlete because they're not sure that they know what to do. And then they stand there for about a minute or two and they're like, oh, I can do this. So there's a lot of information that you can provide them beforehand to, it will not only help calm their nerves, but it'll help bring in more volunteers.
Absolutely. So kind of breaking down any barriers or that feeling that, hey, I don't know what I'm doing, so I can't show up. I mean, that's all, those are all teachable things that you can do once they get there. So, great. Lou.
Yeah, so when I read this question, I think the biggest thing for abilities tennis right now is having coaches that are really committed, and there are several who are, and I just have to say Billy Fitzsimons in Wilmington and Jenny Hoggard, who's in Greensboro, are so committed to having, like Billy has year-round programming, Jenny has a lot. They have fundraisers where they raise money to take bands to our tournaments and to Jim's tournaments, and they're just outstanding. I mean, they create communities in their area, and it's wonderful for them. I've got some tennis pros who have really become mainstays in the program too, like Chad Oxendine, David Markina, Nancy King. They're so committed as tennis pros. They help me with all kinds of either running a clinic or helping write some curriculum or whatever we need. These are all great partnerships. I got James Hunt, who moved up from Louisiana. I said, I'm retired and I want to help in whatever way I can. And he goes across the state of North Carolina helping train people. And like Jim's saying, help them feel comfortable with working with this population. So again, this is a different level of partnerships that we have. And once people start volunteering and helping out, it really gets in your blood and you just love it and you just can't get enough. And so then you tell your friends, and before you know it, sometimes we have more volunteers and coaches than we do athletes. But it really is great, and I love the people that we're meeting, the coaches, the volunteers. It's just outstanding work, and it's so rewarding, and we appreciate all the volunteers.
That's really great. And so, you know, obviously building those partnerships, collaborations, and volunteers are so integral to everything that you do. And I'm going off script a little bit right here, so get ready. But Helen and Kelly, there's an example that you guys have actually, you talked about the medical part and the tennis part and the disability part. And I go back to thinking about Kelly, when you first got started in playing, and you first heard about this through at the hospital still, right? You heard about being able to exercise or to do something. Can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, that's correct. I was actually still an inpatient when I heard about adaptive sports. And then once I had transitioned out from being an inpatient into an outpatient program that I was going every day to Carolina's Rehabilitation, one of the outings was to try wheelchair tennis. And so I very, very hesitantly came because I could not imagine that this body that you guys can't see, but you know, it's quite disabled looking, could play tennis. And so, but my mind was flipped upside down because it was already figured out for me. And so I didn't have to do anything but show up. And then I was welcomed with warm arms. And, you know, I've never left since. It's really a transformative experience. And that's what we want to do. We want to provide that A to Z experience, from equipment to tennis instruction to everything. We don't want the player to worry about one part of that. We just need them to show up.
That's great. Yeah, I just know that when you had explained the experience before, you went kind of from a medical situation into these arms of these tennis enthusiasts, AKA Helen, and her group, and who said, you know, come on, you can do this. And, you know, at that point you were still a little bit, oh, maybe not. And then, you know, they had the physical therapist and the rec therapist there to help get you situated in a manner that made it something that was very doable. So having that whole community there of all those groups really made the difference, probably in you having a good experience versus one that might not have been as smooth, I guess, as you could say. So
Yeah.
That's really amazing. Okay, we're gonna open a polling question here, our last polling question, if you will take time to answer. And I think for those of you that are using iPads, I think there were some separate information on there on how you need to answer the poll. But what do you consider the largest challenge to starting an adaptive community tennis association? Is it equipment? Is it instructors? Funding? Maybe it's safety. Give you another couple seconds to get your answers in. Okay, and I think we'll, can we have all of the above? That's nice, Santa. So let's go ahead and end the poll. And it looks like funding is what people believe is the largest challenge, perhaps. And again, I'm sure they're going to hit on a lot of these different areas, but a lot of it starts with funding. So I think you're probably right on in that answer. So we can stop sharing those results, and I'm going to turn it to our panel to ask, what are some of your largest challenges that your organizations have faced? And obviously, you know, again, we have the spectrum of organizations here, from those just starting, and then we have other more mature organizations that have been around and seen probably different types of challenges as they've gone on. So initially, let's talk with Jim about what are some of the challenges that you all have faced over time.
Okay, sure. Largely for us, it's in Atlanta, we need locations that are convenient and safe. And what I mean by that is that with the Atlanta traffic patterns and so on and so forth, and the times that we're able to have it, we need to make sure in most cases that we're within 5 miles of the population that we're trying to serve. And we've been able to do that largely because of the number of facilities that are in the Atlanta area and making themselves available. But what we try to do also with that facility, so they understand our program, is to create a memorandum of understanding, and that tells them what we are expecting from them, but it also tells that facility what they can expect from us as a result. And we come through and we evaluate and assess each of our sites, not only on the programming standpoint, but to make sure that we indeed are respecting the fact that most of our facilities are donated at no charge. And so we benefit greatly from that and being able to offer our training at no cost to the athletes as a result of that. But certainly I understand the push for funding, because it does cost, and we made the mistake early on, and I encourage you not to make the same mistake if you're just starting, by explaining that our programs were free. Well, that led people to think that it didn't cost anything. And so then when we requested donations, they're like, you said it's free. And that put us in a difficult spot. But now we approach it from the standpoint that we ask people to invest in what we do, and rather than donate, because we feel like if they invest in our athletes and in our programs, that the return on that investment will be the fact that they'll have that segment of the population in their community that feels more empowered and more enriched by the experience that they have. So that's where the payoff is for that. But I think that just making sure you've got good relationships with the facilities out there.
Absolutely. Jim, there was a question asked if you'd be willing to share your MOU with any of the facilities. Does that happen to be on your website, the MOU, or is that?
I'm not sure it is, but certainly happy to share. I think one of the things you'll find in most adaptive tennis programs is we try to share everything, because we know that if you're able to grow an adaptive tennis program in your area, then there's a good chance that at some point in time, our athletes will be able to meet your athletes and get to know each other and expand the friendships that they have. So yes, is it best that I provide that to you, and then you can?
Absolutely, yeah, and then we can get it out to the group if anybody's interested. So, and that's so true, because so much of what we do is, it's those gatherings that are so important. And I know I've spoken to each of you individually about that, it's great to have your program separately and in your area, but when you have those opportunities, those special opportunities to travel to events that are either maybe out of state or, just even out of town, that can be so exciting and, get the athletes really charged up. So, but thank you, Jim. Lou, what are some of the challenges that you have faced over time?
Well, I think just making sure that our growth is thoughtful and contemplative, that we are sure that we can handle what we're doing. The goal is to add 2 to 3 clinics a year, and we've actually added like 1 tournament every 2 years probably. But the clinics, when we start them, most of them take off, but sometimes they don't, and just trying to figure out, is this really an area where it will work? Can we make that, if there are only 2 or 3 athletes coming, is that Is that okay? I mean, sometimes we see that, but then it'll grow as the word gets out, and the hurdles of thinking, oh, my child or my person can't play tennis, it's just, it's figuring out, is this going to work? And I've said before too, that now that we're in a position where people are reaching out and they do want to start programs, and we have to think through it. But I'm also attuned now when I go into, say, a Parks and Recreation department, and I'm all excited and I think, oh, we're going to start this. I can tell pretty quickly how invested this group is. Are they willing to do it? I mean, we provide so much of it, but it's still, Parks and Rec, we want them to do the marketing and registration. And then a lot of times the CTAs will do the volunteers. And then we provide training and equipment and curriculum and the, some other things. But it does take a group of people to make it happen. And another hurdle for me is when I see, say, a program is just about like, all we need is one little piece to make it happen. And I'll find myself saying, oh, I'll do that. I can do that. Well, when you do that for 20 clinics, I have to like have other people doing. I can't do just one thing for all 20 clinics, and so I need to make sure that I don't bite off more than I can chew just because, oh, I just want one more clinic, a few more athletes who their lives can be touched. And so it's really easy. I'm such a yes person, and I just need to be careful that I don't say yes to too much.
Yeah, and that's so true, because we I think probably we all in a lot of our tennis, passionate tennis volunteers are yes people, right? Because we are so enthusiastic about getting programming and everything out there. And sadly, what that does is, if we are trying to do it all, then if we do have to walk away or we can't continue that might cause, things to fall apart at some point in time. So,
Yeah.
It's kind of hard love, I guess, is what you're doing there. So,
Amy, if I could just quickly interject
Sure.
here that you need to make sure you have in place, if you have key people, that you have somebody backstopping that person, or you have a plan, because people's lives do change and their priorities do change. And the last thing you want to do is have to turn the lights out because you don't have a leader or you lost a key person in that particular location.
Right. Absolutely. Because actually the result of that, it's volumes, because all of the athletes are losing as a result of one person, maybe not being able to be a part of that. So Helen and Kelly, what are your challenges?
Well, our biggest challenge is a little different. Ours is player recruitment. While people with a physical disability are desperate to find new outlets, they are often isolated in their homes and disconnected from their communities. And I said earlier, they may be extremely hesitant to come out and try something that they can't even recognize their own body doing. There is no one clearinghouse to go and find wheelchair players, thus the need to have a relationship with the medical community or the disability forum. Once you have identified somebody that's interested, then the next hurdle is how are they going to get there? Because something that is huge in our population and is a huge barrier is transportation. And so if they don't drive, and they may use public transportation or medical transportation, and that can be very inconsistent and very expensive. And so we're constantly trying to problem solve, how can they get there? Equipment, all these factors that prevent them from even showing up. Then once they show up, it's like they love it, but then we want to keep them on task coming each week. And so then we are constantly prompting them weekly, hey, it was great to see you. Look forward to seeing you next week. And so we want them to have that accountability and to know, hey, you have a home here and we would love for you to come back. And so it's a dance that we play. And then another challenge that we face is working within the confines of your city and your community, because we're statewide. while, for instance, Charlotte is a large city and we may have more of a presence in the disability community, we also have much more minutia and less accountability from players to potential sponsors. You know, for example, Laura Wyant, we work with her and Carrie, and she was able to go to, I believe, her local orthopedist office and get a donation for $250. Well, I could no more go to Atrium and get $1 based on just a phone, you know, a conversation. And so while there are pluses and minuses to each one, know your community and know what works best for that community.
Absolutely. That's really great advice. And, you know, and we all know that what works in one community may not be the same in another. So, you know, definitely, as you said, do your homework ahead of time and try to figure out those components before you dive in. So, great. From there, I was going to ask another panel question. So all of you offer free programming, and as Jim said, that doesn't mean it is free, it just offer free programming at points. What are some of the keys to sustainability of your organizations? And Lou, we're going to start with you. I think you might have an event coming up to help with that.
Yeah, so let me start with grants. We apply for every grant that comes out, and North Carolina Tennis, USTA Southern, National, we get a lot of good money from them, and we're so grateful for that. But yes, it doesn't stop there, because to run this program, it costs quite a bit for it to run day to day. I mean, any small business, it just costs. And I see Debbie Southern asked if I could talk about our upcoming fundraiser, and why, yes, I can, Debbie. So we have this thing that is called Footprints on the Court. And when I came in 7 years ago, Raleigh Tennis Association actually held it. So they, again, set up this great foundation for me to just jump in and make it happen. I think at that time they were making about $10,000 for 2 years. And then it's just incrementally gone up every year. So this year, you know, we're not having an in-person tournament. It's usually a tennis tournament, silent auction, and it's a gathering of about 150 to 200 people. So this year we're doing a virtual event, which I thought was going to be very simple to do. Well, it is not that way. It's been 24/7. But it's going to be really exciting. It's this Thursday night, October 22nd, in 2 nights, at 6 o'clock. You can see, you can join in through, it's a YouTube. We're streaming it through YouTube, and you can go to our website. You can find us on social media, Abilities Tennis Association of North Carolina. We're on Instagram, Facebook, and anybody can chime in. We have a silent auction going on. But here's the exciting thing. So we have John Isner's chiming in. So he agreed to come on. He knows one of our athletes. So he's going to do a little interview with him, and then a Q&A time. And then we have all these videos with our athletes across the state. And during this time of COVID, I'm always looking for like the positives. And this, y'all, is one of the positives, is we are documenting just how our athletes' lives are being changed. It's going to be incredible. And, you know, we start out saying maybe 30 minutes. Everybody says keep these short. And the producers are like, we have hours worth of information here, and we're going to try and keep it to 45 or 50. So we've interviewed tons of people. If anybody out there, we've interviewed you and you're not in it, don't get your feelings hurt. We'll probably use you again one of these days, because we have so much footage. We'll probably have another one of these. But we hope you can all join Thursday night at 6 o'clock just to see what we're doing. You know, I mean, yes, it's a fundraiser, but I don't even care if you give or not. I just want you to come and see what we're doing and hear from our athletes. And I promise you, it will lift your spirits. It is going to be fantastic. So, again, after doing this for so many years, I mean, it started in 2017, and I've been here, 2007. and I've been here 7 years. Each year it just builds incrementally, and people learn about it, and people just start giving a little bit more. And so I'm very grateful that right now we have a lot of people who give and support us.
Fantastic. And that really does help help your sustainability as a community tennis
Yes.
association and help with your programming all across the state. And you provide some grant opportunities to your local chapters as well, right?
Well, that's going to be our next step.
Next step, okay,
Is where, yes. Mhm.
gotcha. But, you know,
Depending on how this fundraiser goes, but.
right. And I think one of the important things too, for those of you in the audience that haven't either done an event like this or this is new to you, you know, these are the great things that you can check out what Lou and Abilities are just doing, or any of these programs, and definitely, you know, take it and steal part of it, bring it back to your state, and, you know, you do it your way. And so that's the great thing about the Community Tennis Development Workshop, is because it's all about sharing and networking. And then at the end of the day, we're all going to get better because of all this great information. But thank you for sharing that, Lou. Jim, what are some of the things that you do to help sustain Special Pops?
Well, largely it's the people that we pull in, but financially, the sustainability is based. First of all, let me say that if it's a Special Olympic event, their bylaws forbid you from charging anything to the athletes for that. So that has to be provided at no charge. But we do have other special events, and we've traveled to tournaments. And typically how we do that is we cost share on that. And the cost sharing is where they'll pay a percentage based on how many trips they make during that year. It's a tiered levels as far as the percentage of the cost. And so we cost share from that standpoint. But I think that the true sustainability comes from investing in the people who are the champions of the program, and then in the local businesses, giving them an opportunity to put their names on some aspects of the program, so that if you have a particular team or a group of athletes that are traveling somewhere, you may find a local business that wouldn't mind providing you the t-shirts and helping defer some of the costs for that trip by them putting their brand on that t-shirt as well. If it's Special Olympics, again, you would not be able to do that, but the benefit of the USTA and traveling under that umbrella is that you have far more liberties on how you're able to fund and sustain your programs.
Absolutely. Thanks, Jim. Helen and Kelly, how are you working on sustainability? I know before you started the CTA, you were involved with another program that also needed sustainability. So maybe you can talk about that a little bit.
Yeah, so we've identified 3 key points for sustainability for our WheelServe organization. The first would be creating consistent guidelines in our programming and a structure to our programming. We meet weekly here in Charlotte, and our players really like structure. They want to know what's going to happen when they get there. They want to know, what games we're going to play. We have a 2-hour clinic every week, and it almost always ends up running 3 hours because people are having a lot of fun. But we have found that structure is important to all of our players and to the success of our programming. I guess the second thing is that you really need a community champion for each program that you have, and probably as Jim referenced earlier, you need an understudy for that person, because if that person can't be there one week or goes on vacation or God forbid has to take a leave of absence for a while, you don't want the program to be left without that. So that person is someone who's really dedicated to the program and acts as a link between the players and the tennis volunteers and the medical community. We've found with our programming in Charlotte that after we play on a Tuesday afternoon, I'll send a text to every one of those players and say, great to see you on the court today. It was so much fun. You played so well. Look forward to seeing you next week. And then on Monday night, I send the same texts out to people and just say, looking forward to seeing you tomorrow. And weather looks great. Can't wait to be on the court with you. And we found that personal contact with those players really creates an accountability and has resulted in our numbers being much greater than had we not been reaching out to them individually. And then I guess the last component for us and for sustainability is funding, and grants have been critical for us and so important. And we've been so fortunate to have support from USTA National and Southern and USTA North Carolina. However, we also need to rely on our own fundraising efforts to adequately support all of our programming. In the past, we've had great success with large fundraisers such as Strokes for Spokes, which is an up-down tournament that we do here in Charlotte at UNC Charlotte. And we have over 150 players. It's been hugely successful. Unfortunately, with COVID, we're not able to do that this year. And it's usually in November. So I can't tell you how many people have reached out to me and, said, well, when can we do this? And the answer is we're not exactly sure when we're going to be allowed to do that because of numbers and all the, constraints put on us, rightfully so, by the university. So what we're trying to do now is to come up with some new ideas of maybe some smaller fundraisers, maybe limiting it up to 30 people in communities that we can have an event that's safe and effective for fundraising, but one that we are allowed to do. And our goal would be, if we can, we're actually thinking about doing some mini tennis at a brewery in each town where we're starting our programming. And our goal would be to create a model for this fundraiser and be able to do this in every state every city where we plan to have programming. So, just because we have to make a change doesn't mean that it's not going to be successful. We just have to come up with new ways to fundraise. So that's a challenge for us, but I think that it's certainly something that we can achieve.
Absolutely. And, I think being flexible, the ability to be flexible is something all of you have had to do, and all of probably everybody that's a part of a community tennis association across the board, because, these changes that have come about, they were just unforeseen. And but that flexibility to pivot and go into new direction, will serve any organization very well, I think. So with that, I want to thank our panelists today. That's our last question, but we do have, I think, some questions that have been scrolling through in the chat box. And so we'd like to call attention to that. Or if you have any questions, feel free to go ahead and write it up in the chat box. So I think Leslie or Chris, you were going to help.
Yeah, a little earlier in the discussion, we had a raised hand from Marjorie. She didn't actually type in her question, but not sure if it's been answered since. And then also I want to call attention to another question that came up. Apparently in Savannah, the adaptive tennis program is part of the umbrella CTA as an area of work. And apparently it's cut down on, this has cut down on unnecessary duplication of business expenses. Do any of you see any pitfalls to this approach? Please share.
Anybody?
I do not see any pitfalls in it. I'm fairly familiar with the Savannah program, and because Mary Smith, who helps with that program there, also was in Atlanta when we got started, and so we've been in communication as they've gone through it, and having it governed under another organization and umbrella, as long as you've got a voice, I don't see any pitfalls on that. If you feel like you don't have a voice, then I think you don't want to give that up.
Absolutely. Any additional? I think Debbie Southern asked a question earlier about when would North Carolina have a wheelchair tennis tournament? Any thoughts on that, Kelly or Helen?
So we've been working on I'm going to call it a pilot program for lack of a better term. But, and this is something that, that Amy has helped us with also. One of the challenges for many of our wheelchair players in our program who are at a recreational level, they're looking for a pathway to try to get to that next level, which is traveling to these tournaments, which, as you know, North Carolina doesn't have a lot of wheelchair tournaments currently. So we have, Wheel Serve North Carolina has created a tennis ladder for wheelchair players. It can be, you can be a player anywhere in North Carolina and compete against another wheelchair player. We're trying the Fast Four format where they, for example, last week after one of our clinics, several of our players were able to play, and for every game that you win, you have a point that goes towards your ranking. So even if you were to lose the set 4-2 and 4-3, you would still have 5 points that go towards your ranking. You can play up to 4 matches per month, and quarterly we'll have a winner for that ladder. The program in Cary is also going to start participating in that, and we think that's going to be a great opportunity for wheelchair players in North Carolina to dabble in competition without having to make a commitment, financially and time-wise to cross state lines and actually compete. If you go to our website, wheelservenc.com, you'll see under news and events a section for the tennis ladder, and it will list the current rankings there. And then I guess the second part of your question about having a tournament, we actually were able to compete in Malcolm Graham's Charlotte Amateur Tournament in September with our players, and we did this Fast Four format. So while there was a tournament with over 100 players of all different divisions, adult competition, they allowed us to have our own section of the tournament, and we did the Fast Four format. And it was great because we were there for one day. It wasn't a huge time commitment, but we were able to play right along with the other players in the tournament. So we'd like to be able to tag on to some other existing tournaments rather than having to create a whole separate tournament. And I think that that's something that we're working towards, and maybe have, even just try quarterly to go to a different town in each state, whether it's Wilmington or Asheville, Greensboro, Cary, and tag on to an existing tournament and let these players play and experience tournament tennis.
Absolutely. Leslie, were there any other questions that you noticed?
I think we got to them all, but if any were missed, we can certainly continue the conversation in the Whova app. There's some really great Q&A features and discussion going on in there. So if we did not get to your question or simply missed it in all of the other discussion going on in the chat, please feel free to drop that in the Whova app and we will get to you.
Thanks, Leslie. One of the things I would encourage you all to do is to definitely check out the websites of these 3 organizations. They're all fantastic. They've got some great videos, super resources there. And then of course, you can connect with them. Leslie just put it up again. Those are the addresses, and it's also located on the information on the Whova app as well. And then let's see, do any of you have a plan to work players into league play?
We really want to do that. We've talked about it. I'll be honest with you. We're so busy that I don't even know when we could possibly do it. But yes, we definitely want to have some type of league play. But right now, I think it's just going to be, for us, setting up more clinics across the state is priority. And then I think as that continues to grow and we have more and more clinics and we can have them like bunches that are together play each other in league. So, but I don't know how far off that is.
Yeah, and I'll just say real quick that what we do is we have our own league that we work the traditional league players in as partners, and we have a doubles league called Unified Doubles, and and they play in a league format, but it's not not where they're joining a USTA league. It's where the USTA players are joining a special pops league.
And let me just say, We'll Serve North Carolina also has plans to integrate our players into existing able-bodied leagues. We have one of our players is already playing in a men's 3-5 league in Rock Hill, South Carolina, and there's absolutely no reason that our players can't do this. So we're working with our CTA in Charlotte to try to talk about that and go ahead and make that happen. And I'll just say that I want Kelly Flowhouse as my partner when we do that. So.
Absolutely. Absolutely. With that, I think there may have been one last question. Says, with your virtual training, you offered the athletes along with the curriculum. Was there some sort of athlete assessments along the way so you and your team could evaluate how this was working?
Yes, actually there was, and it's called an activity log, and all the athletes were sent a packet of information, like they had bands to work out with, and it's activity log where they were supposed to fill it out each day, because we didn't want them to just work out on that Thursday, but work out every day and to keep up with it. And then at the end of this training, there will be an evaluation period just to see how productive it was.
Right. Well, thank you all so much for thanks to our panelists for all of your amazing information and expertise. And thank you to everyone that was there watching. If you have any further questions, you can either put them in the chat or reach out directly, and we'll be glad to assist you. And at this point, I think I'm turning it back over to Leslie or Chris.
I'm happy to take back over and first say thank you so much to our amazing panelists and all the great questions that came up in the chat. Everybody was fantastic. This completes day one of CTDW, and I am thrilled to be through and excited. Just wanted a quick reminder to fill out the session evaluation, which you will find on the session page. And let you know that, of course, there are still so many great sessions coming up tomorrow. Tomorrow is a full day. You can start the day with yoga. We'll talk about CGPG and volunteering from the local to the national level. And then there's some state-specific sessions after that, some for North Carolina, some for Georgia. So just wanted to just send that out as a reminder to everyone. Thank you all for being part of day one. I feel like this is semi-historic for us. Nothing replaces being face-to-face, but this panel was a great addition to day one. And thank you all again. And I hope everybody has a great night.